and welcome to this episode of Death is for the Dying, a special season of the Life is for the Living podcast. I'm your host, Rebecca Richmond. As we wind down this season, I want to put the focus on the rules and laws that regulate death and dying. Laws and regulations about death and dying can be seen as safeguards against abuse on one hand, but restrictive control over people's lives and bodies on the other hand. Laws like those that either ban or allow medical aid in dying bring up moral, religious, and personal questions. Should we help someone commit suicide? And if so, when? What constitutes enough suffering to make a life meaningless? How do we tell if someone is capable of making that decision? Should having a mental illness preclude somebody from medical aid in dying? Could we ourselves aid somebody that we love to end their lives? The list goes on and on. And that's just one of many issues surrounding death and dying that don't have clear answers. But one thing my guests agree on is that the current system does not work for enough people. Death-positive activist Rebecca was short and to the point on what she would change.
I would make death with dignity, medically assisted death, more available.
But others wanted to change laws and regulations that you may have never thought about before. Mara, whose husband is dying of ALS, wants improvement in terminal patient care and flexibility in the way insurance and hospice support people with different diagnoses, particularly in those who do best in a home care situation.
They don't understand that. He needs to be home. Some people need to be home. He's one of them. Home health care needs to deal better with people who are considered terminal, especially someone who, like him, who he is considered terminal. I consider him terminal. However, he thrives. He loves to work. He makes maps every day. He changes the broken landscape of ALS every single day. He contributes so much to a lot of lives, but he is not allowed to have PT, home PT, because people who are considered terminal are only allowed to get one training session so that we can just give him this basic range of motion, which, by the way, does not work for ALS patients. They need this special kind of stretch that goes farther than any normal person who's not a PT would know how to do. Even PTs need to be trained on it by ALS clinics. So there's this very specialized knowledge that would make his day so much better if he could just get it covered. Or heck, some things we would actually pay for, right now. We can't. But when we were first diagnosed, we had a little nest egg. We would say, well, we'll pay for that PT. Here's a weird thing that I bet you a lot of folks don't know. Most things that you want, like a ventilator or a cough assist machine or a PT session, you have to get insurance to approve to get it. They won't just let you pay out of pocket. So we needed a hydration bag. Another time Pat almost died. There was no way for us to just say, we will pay for it. We'll just get it to us. We know that he needs this. His nurse knows. His doctor knows. Insurance was no, we need some more evidence. But when you're dehydrated for a week and that's your only hope of living, you need hydration. I would change whatever that is that says home health agencies cannot do more than one PT session, say. Or if you're considered terminal, but you have a trach and there's this indefinite period, it's not so cut and dry that you're just going to shrivel up and die. Those people should just be treated like normal people, I feel. They should get whatever normal people living at home would get. And if they needed PT at home or if they needed PT but they couldn't go get it, but they still qualified for it, why can't home health do that? They do other things.
Kathy, the end-of-life doula, wanted more required training for medical staff in how to talk to their patients about their own death.
And what I would like to add is Medicare Section Q. And that Q would be standing for quality of life, that doctors, nurse practitioners, physicians' assistants, and social workers would be paid to have the difficult conversations about end-of-life care. The reason I say that is because so little time is devoted to it, number one. And the more we know about a person's wishes, the more that we can care for them in a way that they want. And also because it is a taboo subject for so many people, this gives that medical team time, taking a half an hour at the bedside. Most people actually understand what's going on, but a lot of people don't. And there is no guidance. It was like meeting this family today and feeling their sense of bewilderment about what was going on, and that nobody could tell them, what's it going to be like. And I had to say to them, there is no crystal ball, but there is no one person who was actually consulting and painting scenarios about possible ways in which a person could die. And just being able to have time to have these important discussions so that we can honor a person's wishes. And that's the one piece that's missing here, is that people are not recognizing how important it is to honor a person's wishes.
Seth, co-owner of The Natural Funeral, wanted it to be legal for family members to handle the bodies of their loved ones.
The thing that I would actually focus on in death care right now, if I could shift a law, would enable access of families to their loved one after they've died. In a lot of states, it's illegal for someone who's not a licensed funeral director or embalmer or cemeterian or transporter to touch a dead body. And what that means is if you go to sleep next to your spouse and only one of you wakes up, there are states where you need to call a professional and back away. That person is no longer legal for you to engage with when you went to bed with them as your spouse. And that is silly to me. It is silly to me that for tens of thousands of years that we have inherently taken care of our family and our neighbors and our tribe and our clan, and there hasn't been a big business to outsource this service from, that we have evolved so far that our hands are actually tied in terms of what we can do to facilitate the funeral services and even being with the body of our loved ones after they've died. So I would make sweeping changes to enable the access of wives and children and parents to their people who have died. We would probably see an uptick in home funerals, which is something that we support very strongly here at the Natural Funeral. We would see people being memorialized and visited at home in the environment where they lived and died, rather than in sterile funeral viewing and visitation rooms. I believe that inherent in each of us is this, not necessarily a wisdom of the practical steps to take, but a wisdom that ties into that healing moment of spark that can only happen when I touch the body of my loved one and recognize, oh, they're at a different temperature now. Their body is changing temperature to become the ambient room temperature. As I touch their chest is no longer rising and falling with their breath. And as I put my hand and I kiss their heart's no longer beating. And when we feel that with our own hands, and we put our lips on the forehead of a parent or a spouse, there is something deeply knowing that this was the vessel of the person that carried the life that I called, Sarah or George or whatever, that had a name to my beloved, and they're not here anymore. They're not in this vessel anymore. And so I can honor this vessel in terms of washing and dressing and anointing and praying and having ritual. And the tactile form of that is actually helping me to integrate the fact that their body is no longer carrying them.
Well, Jennifer, with her focus on Black cemeteries, wants the penalties for disturbing graves to be much higher.
Oh, I don't think the penalty is enough for exhuming or desecrating a body. Okay, so I guess it's important to note that the cemetery is in rural Texas. It's a cemetery that's on the edge of a former plantation. So it started as a graveyard for the enslaved, and over time become like one of the biggest African American cemeteries in the county. And there was an instance where a grave digger from another cemetery went to bury a body bury someone without notifying the graveyard or like the cemetery steward or anything like that, the manager, but like hit another corpse, took that one out, put theirs in, and left it. And then it obviously turned into a legal issue, and they've since settled. And the only consequence really was they were responsible for reinterning the corpse that they had exhumed, and it was a couple fines. So I don't know, maybe some law where if you are desecrating or damaging a cemetery, you're on the hook for providing some kind of lawn mowing service for like 5 years or something. Because I'm seeing that lawn care is a basic, important necessity in cemeteries. It's overgrown, we can't see it, and it's lost. And then I think there should be some heavier fines like that, maybe for desecrating or exhuming a body. And the fines should be heavy. They're not heavy enough either. A couple $1,000. When I believe it's like, $10,000 to exhume a body on average? So that guy did it for free.
So now I have a question for all of you listening. What would you change about our death care system? Let us know on Instagram or Twitter at Life is for the L, or email us at lifeisforthelivingpodcast@gmail.com. Remember, you can also watch us on the new Life is for the Living YouTube channel. As always, take care and see you next time.